If the fuel penalty factors associated with any situation requiring a landing gear gravity extension in the A320 QRH were interpreted literally, then in a single-engine situation, an IAE V2500 engine would need to burn almost 6 tons of fuel per hour in straight and level flight. That is impossible. So let's look at where this number comes from. Within the QRH methodology, fuel penalties are expressed as additive increases relative to the normal fuel flow. For example, a 15% penalty clearly means that the expected fuel flow becomes normal fuel flow plus 15% equals 115% of this normal value. Now, let's apply the same reasoning to the configuration of landing gear down with gear doors open, such as when using landing gear gravity extension procedure. The A320 QRH lists the following fuel penalty factors: 180% penalty for landing gear down and 15% penalty for gear doors open. When these penalties are added together, the QRH indicates a total fuel penalty of 195%. If we apply the same interpretation we just used, the normal 100% plus 180 plus 15% would imply a total fuel flow of 295% of the normal value, almost triple. That is an extraordinary claim. In a simulated one-engine inoperative condition, A320 at 55 tons, 3,000 feet MSL, the live engine burns normally 2,040 kilograms per hour, according to the simulator indication. Now, adding 195% penalty to this value means that that engine would burn 6,018 kilograms per hour. The simulator shows that during a single engine go-around in toga, that engine burns a maximum of 4,140 kilograms per hour, and that is limited to 10 minutes only. This simple demonstration of impossible application of the QRH fuel penalty factors raises a very important question. With 2.2 tons of fuel remaining, the QRH fuel penalty factor tells you that you have only 22 minutes of endurance before engines flame out, but your alternate is 25 minutes away. So what do you do? Do you believe what the QRH tells you or what you actually see on your instruments? My name is Cristian Mandu. I'm an Airbus A320 captain, instructor, examiner, and through A320captain.com I share practical guidance to help pilots prepare more effectively for their simulator checks. To test QRH information in this video, we will check the green hydraulic low level and landing gear gravity extension from 3 different perspectives: Airbus FLYSMART calculation, A320 simulator observation, and finally a real A321 aircraft when we lower the landing gear at green dot speed at 2,500 feet. The goal is to demonstrate something very important for pilots: how to think critically when interpreting procedural information. And I sincerely hope that you are working for an airline that values critical thinking as the foundation for airmanship and common sense. Let's begin with Airbus FLYSMART, because this is the easiest way for a regular pilot to check this information at home. The conditions used are weight 57 tons, altitude 3,000 feet, speed at green dot, which is 193 knots in this simulation, 21 degrees Celsius at sea level, so it's ISA deviation plus 6, and clean configuration. The first thing I want to understand is how FLYSMART handles the baseline fuel flow in the most unfavorable case, single engine operation, and then what happens when I try to apply the QRH fuel penalty logic. On the cruise one-engine inoperative page, FLYSMART indicates a single-engine fuel flow of 1,790 kg per hour, which is significantly lower than the simulator indicated approximately 2,040 kg per hour. That initial difference can be explained because no fuel factor has been applied yet. As described in the FLYSMART Performance User Guide, the fuel factor field is where you should insert the FMS performance factor calculated by your performance department and displayed on the OFP, minus basic performance factor plus 1%. That's easy, isn't it? In our case, in the simulated associated version used for this demonstration, that value comes out to 8.2%, giving a corrected FLYSMART value of 1,936 kg per hour for that single engine running. This is still lower than the simulator, but much closer. The remaining difference may simply reflect differences between the FLYSMART performance model and the simulator model, and that's not the main issue here. So the question is, what happens if I try to apply the QRH fuel penalty factor in FLYSMART? To do that, I must go to the non-standard configuration, NSC, and FLYSMART provides a dedicated fuel penalty factor entry. After inserting 195%, FLYSMART indicates a fuel flow of 5,426 kilograms per hour, which is again impossible. In the simulator at toga thrust, the fuel flow stays below 4,200 kilograms per hour per the live engine. An IAE V2500 simply cannot burn 5.4 tons of fuel per hour. So, for simplicity, I will keep the fuel factor at 0 and focus instead on the relative increase in fuel flow associated with landing gear gravity extension conditions, starting with all engines operating. The FLYSMART plan for alternate, which we say is 100 nautical miles away, indicates a normal fuel consumption of 800 kilograms. What we need to do is use non-standard configuration NSC and select landing gear extended and landing gear doors open. It comes out with 1.4 tons in 30 minutes and a total fuel penalty factor of 81%, not 195% as the QRH indicates. Let's try cruise. For normal fuel consumption, all engine operating, it calculates a total fuel flow of 1,964 kilograms per hour. If we select landing gear down and landing gear doors open, FLYSMART calculates 3,203 kilograms per hour total fuel flow, which, as FLYSMART indicates, correspond to a fuel penalty factor of 63.1%. It is very smart, but still far away from the 195% in the QRH. Let's try single engine situation. In clean configuration, it shows 1,790 kilograms per hour. With the landing gear gravity extension conditions, it shows 3,117 kilograms per hour fuel burn. That corresponds to an increase of approximately 74%, nowhere near 195%. Let's compare the operational flight plan final reserve fuel with the FLYSMART holding data. 1,080 kilograms per 30 minutes holding at 1,500 feet AAL, and the OFP indicates 1,067 kilograms. Very, very close. But how does your final reserve fuel change with the landing gear gravity extension? That is a typical simulator scenario, I would say. How much do you burn in 30 minutes with those gears and doors open? That is important to know as it defines your boundary to declare a Mayday fuel. With a non-standard configuration, it comes out to 1,790 kilograms per 30 minutes holding. That is a penalty of about 66%, nowhere near 195% QRH information. Well, let's try to get closer results if we test this QRH data in a latest generation FFS. And what we care about is the fuel burn indication. Simulator all engine operating normal flow in this condition is 2,360 kilograms per hour. After completing the green hydraulic low level ECAM and applying the landing gear gravity extension procedure, the fuel flow is 3,200 kilograms per hour, increase plus 36%. Well, let's see the one engine in operative in clean configuration. Fuel flow 2,040 kilograms per hour. One engine in operative with green hydraulic low level plus landing gear gravity extension procedure completed, the fuel flow increases to 2,820 kilograms per hour. Increase 38%. The SIM indicates about half the fuel penalty values given by the FLYSMART and over 155% less than the QRH. There is only one way left to clarify this dilemma: the real aircraft. Here is a clip from an A321, a green dot speed. I do not remember the weight, but it doesn't matter as we are interested in the relative increase in fuel flow when landing gear is lowered. 2,660 kilograms per hour increasing to 3,920 kilograms per hour, an increase of approximately 47% in fuel burn, yet the QRH data lists a 180% penalty for flight with landing gear down. Again, nowhere near what a literal QRH interpretation would imply. Conclusion. Across manufacturer software, simulator behavior, and real aircraft observation, the increase in fuel flow consistently falls between 36% and 81%. Yet the QRH fuel penalty factor is 195%. This is exactly why pilots must think critically when interpreting Airbus information. Not to dismiss it, but to understand what the numbers really mean before building operational decisions on them. Let's put all the numbers on one slide. To better understand how QRH fuel penalty factor is derived, I revisited the use of fuel penalty factors table. Still, those penalties sure look a lot more than just conservative values given as a guideline in order to increase the crew awareness and to help decision making. The dilemma is whether to believe what you see on your instruments or what the QRH tells you. My feeling is that the answer lies in the QRH exoneration note, which states that the flight crew must still compute and monitor the actual fuel consumption. Thank you for watching. I wish you many sim checks with no stress.